April 1945. A POW processing center outside Regensburg, Germany. The war was dying. Every day, thousands of German soldiers came through the gates, hands up, weapons down. Eyes that said different things: relief, shame, defiance, exhaustion. The Americans thought they'd seen everything. Then Sergeant David Cole saw the boy. He was standing in the processing line, third from the front, full SS uniform, black collar tabs, death's head insignia on the cap, the uniform of the most feared, the most fanatical soldiers in the entire German military. But the face above that collar, that face didn't match. Cole stopped walking. He stared. He counted again. The boy couldn't have been older than 16. His face still had the softness of childhood. No stubble, no lines. His hands were the hands of someone who should have been holding a school book, not a rifle. He was tall enough for the uniform, but something about the way he stood gave it away. He wasn't wearing it. He was being swallowed by it. The boy's eyes moved to Cole, not afraid, not defiant, just waiting, like he'd been waiting for a very long time. Cole walked past his paperwork, past the routine, straight to his commanding officer. "Sir," he said, "you need to see something." What happened next would land on General Patton's desk by nightfall, and Patton's response would force every man in that camp to confront the most devastating question of the entire war. Not who deserved punishment, but who deserved mercy. Before we continue, make sure you subscribe. We tell the stories about World War II that no history book dares to simplify. The processing center was run by Captain Leonard Hatch, 34 years old, Nashville, Tennessee, a school teacher before the war. He would later say the irony was not lost on him. When Cole brought him to the line, Hatch saw the boy immediately. He walked up, stopped 3 feet away, looked at the face beneath the SS cap. The boy looked back, jaw set, posture rigid, trying to look like a soldier. He almost managed it. "How old are you?" Hatch asked. The boy answered in German. Hatch turned to his translator, Private Ernst Müller, a German-American from Milwaukee. "He says he's 18, sir." Hatch looked at the boy's face again. "Ask him again, his real age." Same answer. 18. "What's his name?" "Werner Franke, sir. SS Unterscharführer, Junior NCO rank." "Unit?" Müller asked. The boy answered precisely, a soldier's answer. 12th SS Panzer Division Hitlerjugend, sir." The name landed like a stone in the room. Hatch knew the division. Every American officer in Europe knew it. The Hitlerjugend, Hitler Youth. The SS division built entirely from teenagers, boys raised inside the Nazi system from childhood, who'd known nothing else, believed nothing else. They had committed atrocities in Normandy, killed prisoners, executed Canadian soldiers after capture. And now one of them was standing in Hatch's processing line, trying to look like a man. Hatch pulled Werner Franke out of the line, took him to a separate room, sat him down at a table. The boy sat straight, back rigid, eyes forward, still performing. "Tell him to take off his cap," Hatch said. Müller translated. Werner placed the SS cap on the table in front of him. Without the cap, he looked even younger. Light brown hair, cut short, still with the look of a boy's haircut. A small scar above his left eyebrow. The kind boys get falling off bicycles. Hatch looked at that scar for a moment. "Ask him when he was born," Müller asked. Werner answered, this time without the soldier's voice. Just a voice. Müller turned to Hatch. Something different in his face now. "Sir," Müller said quietly. "He was born in February 1929. Hatch did the math. He did it twice. 16 years old, 16 years and 2 months. "Ask him when he joined the SS, Werner answered. "He says he was inducted in June 1944, sir. He was 15. He says he volunteered." Ask him if he really volunteered. Miller asked, but differently this time. Softer. Like he actually wanted to know. Werner was quiet for a moment, then he answered, longer this time. Miller listened. His jaw tightened. He says his entire class was inducted together. He says they were told it was an honor. His father had already died on the Eastern Front. His mother told him it was what his father would have wanted. Miller paused. He says he didn't know how to say no. He says he didn't know there was a no. The room was very quiet. He didn't know there was a number. Hatch stood up. He had a report to write, and he had a feeling it was going to be the most difficult report of his career. He was right. The report reached Patton's desk the following afternoon. Patton read it in full, twice. Then he sat back and looked at the ceiling for a long time. The situation had no clean answer, no precedent he could reach for easily. On one side, Werner Franke was SS. The SS was not a regular military organization, it was a criminal organization. Its members were not entitled to the same protections as Wehrmacht soldiers. The Hitler-Jugend division had documented war crimes. If Franke had participated in combat, and his NCO rank suggested he was potentially complicit. On the other side, Werner Franke was 16 years old, conscripted into a system he was born inside, raised inside, never given the option to leave. He had never known a Germany that wasn't Nazi Germany. He had never been taught anything except what the regime wanted him to know. Was he responsible for the uniform he was given at 15? Patton read the single line that Hatch had included almost as a footnote, like he'd been uncertain whether to put it in. When asked if he had killed anyone, the prisoner was silent for approximately 30 seconds. Then he said, "I did what I was told. That's all I ever knew how to do." He did not say yes. He did not say no. Patton put the report down. He picked up the phone. "Get me Captain Hatch. Tell him I'm coming down there." Patton's jeep arrived the next morning. Cold April sky. The mud between the barracks buildings gray with exhaustion. Soldiers stopped what they were doing and watched. When Patton showed up personally for something, it meant the thing mattered. Hatch met him at the entrance. "Where is he?" Patton said. No greeting. "Holding room, sir, separate from the general population. Anyone talk to him since your report?" "Only Muller, sir, to make sure he ate." They walked through the camp. Patton said nothing. He was somewhere else already, thinking. The holding room was a converted storage space. Small. A table, 2 chairs, a single window with wire mesh. Werner Franke stood the moment Patton entered. Came to attention. Trained reflex. Patton looked at him. He'd been in wars since 1917. He'd seen soldiers die at 20. He'd sent 18-year-olds into the worst fighting in human history. But the face in front of him was different. This wasn't a boy who'd lied about his age to serve. This was a boy who'd never been asked. Patton sat down across from him, gestured for Werner to sit. Werner sat but kept his back straight, still performing. Patton turned to Muller. "Tell him I'm not here to punish him, I'm here to understand him." Muller translated. Werner's expression shifted. Just slightly, a crack in the performance. "Ask him what he thought the SS was when he joined." Werner answered. "He says he thought it was the best soldiers. The ones who protected Germany, that's what they were told. He says he was proud. His mother was proud. Ask him if he knows what the SS did. Not in battle, the other things." This question was different. Muller translated it carefully. Werner was quiet for a long time. Then he answered. Muller translated slowly. "He says he heard rumors. In the division they didn't talk about it. The officers said those were lies spread by enemies. He says he believed them because he didn't know how not to." A pause. "He says now he's seen the faces of the men in this camp." the American soldiers, and they look at him a certain way. He thinks he understands that there was something he was never told. The room was still. Patton leaned forward. Ask him this. If someone had sat him down at 12 years old and told him exactly what Germany was going to become, what does he think he would have done? It was a brutal question. Müller hesitated. Werner received it. He looked down at the table, quiet for almost a full minute. When he looked up, there were no tears. He was too trained for tears. But the performance was gone. Just a boy. He answered. Müller's voice was quiet. He says he doesn't know. He says he was a child. He says children do what they're shown. He says that's the most frightening thing he's learned since he got here. Not that he was wrong, but that he might not have known to be different even if he'd wanted to. Patton stood, walked to the window, looked out at the camp. He stood there a long time. Then he turned back and spoke to Müller, but his eyes were on Werner. Tell him this. He spoke slowly, every word chosen. You were given a uniform you didn't choose by a country that never asked your permission to fight for a cause that was already lost before you were old enough to understand what a cause was. Müller translated. Werner listened. That uniform has crimes attached to it, serious crimes that will be answered for. I'm not going to pretend otherwise. Müller translated. Werner's jaw tightened, not defiance, something harder to name, someone trying to hold themselves together. But I know the difference between a soldier and a weapon that was never given a choice. What happens to you will be determined by investigators, by evidence, not by the insignia on your collar. I'm going to make sure that process actually happens. Müller translated. Werner looked at the general across the table, the man who had fought his country for 3 years, who had every reason to see the SS collar tabs and make a very simple decision. Werner said something, 3 words. Müller translated, his voice slightly unsteady. He says, "Why are you doing this?" Patton looked at the boy for a long moment. Tell him, because the war is over. And when the war is over, the only thing worth fighting for is getting it right. Müller translated. Werner was quiet. Patton walked to the door. He paused without turning around. Separate him from the general SS population, full record from the division, every engagement log, every order he received. I want the determination made on evidence. A beat. And get him a chaplain if he asks for one. Yes, sir. Patton walked out. The investigators worked for weeks. They pulled the records of the 12th SS Panzer Division's final months. Cross-referenced Werner Franke's unit assignments against every documented atrocity. What they found, 9 months of combat, anti-tank unit. He had fired weapons, wounded once, shrapnel, left arm. But he had not been present at the executions. His unit logs placed him 60 kilometers away during the murders of Canadian prisoners in Normandy. He was a child soldier, conscripted into an organization whose crimes were not in question. But Werner Franke specifically had fought. He had not murdered. The recommendation supervised release into a denazification program. It landed on Patton's desk. He read it. He signed it. 1 word at the bottom. Proceed. Werner Franke spent 8 months in the denazification program, interviewed 14 times. By psychologists, historians, former camp survivors brought in specifically to sit across from him, to sit across from a man who had been in Dachau, to not look away. He didn't look away. One survivor, Heinrich Reiss, 41, Hamburg, spent 3 sessions with Werner. In the final one, he said, "You are not who harmed me, but you wore the face of those who did. Carry that, not as guilt for what you didn't do,